Hello, I'm Juan Padilla, the Human Resources Director for the City of Tukwila. I'm honored to present the City of Tukwila's first Juneteenth Commemoration, the history of Juneteenth, past, present, and future of African American history in the United States. We have an amazing lineup in honor of the Juneteenth Commemoration, starting with the Negro National Anthem, performed by the Church by the Side of the Roads Choir, a locally based church here in Tukwila. Next will be the past. I will walk us through the past and will highlight the historical inequities that African Americans faced during their journey as enslaved people in this nation. After this, the present. I will then dive into Resolution 1992, adopted by the City Council in 2020, declaring that Juneteenth will be recognized every year in Tukwila. This will be followed by an African American cuisine demo by our city staff. And finally, the future. The city would like to acknowledge our very own African American community leaders, honoring them for their commitment to the Tukwila community. To close out will be a performative piece led by Praxis Essential. What is Juneteenth? The Juneteenth Commemoration is the oldest nationally celebrated event that takes place every year on June 19th, and I would like to share how this day came to be. In late September of 1862, U.S. President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, emancipating enslaved Africans in states that had seceded from the Union, although this proclamation did not guarantee freedom to all enslaved Africans in this nation. Only 11 Confederate states abolished slavery during this time, and it allowed for African American men to join the Union Army and the U.S. Navy to fight Confederacy soldiers in the Deep South. 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, 2,000 Union soldiers of the 13th Army Corps arrived in the city of Galveston, Texas. Under the orders of Major General Gordon Granger, the Union soldiers marched through Galveston announcing General Order No. 3 at various locations in the city. The General Order was issued on June 19, 1865, and it read as follows. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and the rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere. In 1979, the former city manager of Galveston, Texas, Doug Matthews, and Texas Representative Al Edwards created the Galveston Juneteenth Committee. This committee formed the first ever annual Juneteenth commemoration. It took place on the lawn of Ashan Villa, a historic home located on the corner of 24th and Broadway. This Juneteenth celebration included prayers, the reading of General Order No. 3 so that they could honor the past, and the bringing of African American community together to commemorate. African American people were not truly free until the 13th Amendment was passed by the United States Constitution, which abolished slavery entirely in all the U.S. and its territories. And now part of Tukwila's past. We all come to appreciate South Center Mall here in Tukwila. It is one of the biggest malls in the Pacific Northwest. Before South Center Mall was developed, Tukwila was a farming community, and many African American families were bused in from Seattle's Central District to farm these lands. Our next guest is Wayne Perryman, the proud father of Trish Kinlow, the City of Tukwila's court administrator. Mr. Perryman will take you on a journey of what it was like working on the farms before South Center Mall.
Hi, I'm Wayne Perryman. I'm the father of Tricia Kinlow, of which most of you know. I'm standing here at City Hall in Tukwila, and behind me, or overlooking South Center in Tukwila, Washington, brings back many memories as a child. At one time, it was just farmland from Tukwila all the way out to Kent. The farmland of Tukwila is, you might say, it's an extension of the farmland of Washington State, which was started by George W. Bush, a black pioneer that founded the farms in Washington State and one of the founding fathers of Washington State. He's the one that sponsored most of the businesses that came into Washington, most of the farms that we call Bush country today, located in Tukwila, Washington. Washington State was founded on farming principles, and George W. Bush financed most of those, including the sawmill and updated farming techniques with his own finance. So many historians say that he's the father of Washington State, the founding father of Washington State. His son was also into farming, and he's the one that introduced legislation in Washington State to make Washington State University the farming school of this particular state to advance farming techniques in the state. Well, this brings me back to Tukwila and when I was a little boy. It was very common during that time for African American, particularly young people that could not find jobs other than being a paper boy, to be able to work like the migrant workers today on the farms. So our families would take their kids to the farm every summer, and that's how we spent most of our summer, working on the farms from Tukwila all the way out to Kent, Washington, which is currently the South Center Shopping Center. Now, where did we come from? Well, I was born and raised in Seattle, around the Seattle University district. From that geographical location to the area that we one time called the Yesler Terrace Housing Project, which was started in 1942. It was the first integrated housing project in the United States. And the kids there and the kids in our community, every summer, we would be down here from sunup to sundown picking beans. It was a horrible time for us. We never had a chance to play like other kids during the summer. School's out and you spend all of your time playing. We spent all of our times working in the fields that we now call South Center Shopping Center. Among some of the people who worked in the fields with us is a friend of mine. His name was Jimmy Hendricks. Jimmy Hendricks lived right around the corner from our house, and he, like all the other kids, spent summers in the bean fields right here in South Center, Tukwila. Jimmy Hendricks also was the individual who performed at the Yesler Terrace housing project called the Neighborhood House. Well, a typical day for us in the summer was mother would get her 5 children up at 2 a.m. From Seattle University, we would walk all the way down to Pioneer Square because we had no money for a bus fare. So mother would have her 5 children. We would walk 3 to 4 miles from the Seattle University area down to Pioneer Square, where they had several buses waiting for our population and the population of the people who at that time hung out at Pioneer Square, which we call Skid Row bums, men who spent most of their money drinking during the day and night, and they would get up and they would load onto the buses like the black families there in Seattle and from the Yesler Terrace Project. It would be cold in the morning. Mother would gather us and we would wear the warmest clothes, but the buses that they had that took us out here to Tukwila and to Auburn and Kent, they had no heat in these buses. The windows were busted. We were very cold. At that time, I was only about, 6 or 7 years old, and I would be crying because, number one, I was hungry, we didn't have breakfast in our home, and we had to get up and walk all the way down to Pioneer Square to catch one of these buses. It mattered not what the weather was. Many times in working in these fields, there was so much mud between the rows of the bean fields, our feet would get stuck in the mud. We would start in the morning when there was frost on the leaves of the beans, and our hands would be terribly cold. We would cry, and Mother would tell us we would still have to work through that. We worked through that till, about noon. That's the time we got off for lunch. And sometime we would go down to the Green River and jump in the river to cool off. Well, the farmers who were like overseers, plantation overseers, Smith Brothers, they are currently delivering milk today. They had a huge farm. The Lever Brothers, they were more like the plantation owners because they would ride around on horses with shotguns, and if they found any of these kids, any of us being, disobedient, our parents kept us in line, they were like the overseers that threatened us if we didn't work all day, and they would not tolerate us playing in their bean fields. Well, we made 2.5 cents a pound. It would take us all day, and the best pickers would make $5 a day. That was my family, the Perryman family, and the Jenkin families, 2 primary black families in Seattle that literally farmers fought over to get us to come to their farms because we were some of the best bean pickers in this region. Well, not only did we pick beans, but my daughter, Tricia, her husband from Tacoma, their family will go out and pick beans as well. So it was just a common practice. It was a job that everyone could participate in, the entire family, in order to get money to buy school clothes. And my mother, she used the money to pay rent, light bill, water bill, and if there's any money left, she bought food. And that food, included enough money to buy lunch meat and bread for our lunch the next day. So it was just a cycle. We would go and work in the bean fields, we would come home, and Mother would buy, we said bread and lunch meat just for us to have lunch the next day. By the time she spent that, all the money was gone, and we would be back at the bean field the very next day. Well, I can fully understand what it feels like to be a migrant worker. We talk about immigration reform, and we look at these people as though they're second-class citizens. We felt that way. And it wasn't until, years later, when the farmers sold off the land to produce South Center Shopping Center, that I was working at that time as a young man, thank God, not in the bean fields anymore, but Lucky Stores. Lucky Stores was a supermarket chain out of Los Angeles, out of California. Their headquarters in Seattle was where I worked with. And then we started a store, the first supermarket store at South Center Shopping Center. It was a different experience for us. It was part of our African American history. Started with George W. Bush, the founding African American pioneer of Washington State. The evolution continued even right down to my family, to Trisha's family, the Perryman family. We were the migrant workers of that time. So that's a little bit of a history of the place where you shop today. South Center Shopping Center was the bean fields. Lastly, I remember my friend Harold Reynolds, the second baseman for the Seattle Mariners, good friend of mine. When he retired, he asked me to deliver the speech for his retirement. The subject of my speech for Harold Reynolds that reflected his life was titled, From the Bean Fields to the Ball Fields. Even his family worked all summer long in the bean fields like many of the other African Americans in the Pacific Northwest. Thank you for giving me this time to give my personal history and being the father of Trisha, our family's legacy and history in establishing the place that you call South Center. Thank you.
Last year in 2020, the Tukwila City Council adopted Resolution 1992, declaring that Juneteenth will be recognized every year in Tukwila as a celebration of emancipation and an opportunity to honor African Americans in our community through continued learning and understanding of the impacts of slavery. Our next featured guest is Councilmember Deshaun Quinn, who will be honoring the City of Tukwila's former and longest serving and also first African American council member, Joe Duffy.
My name is Deshaun Quinn, and I'm very pleased to participate in our Juneteenth celebration by honoring the past and present of one of Tukwila's greatest civic leaders, a true voice of the people, former City Council member Joe Duffy. Joe has had a fascinating life that includes military service as a first sergeant in the National Guard, careers including shipbuilding, painting, construction, and landscaping, and hobbies like restoring classic cars, scuba diving, and playing Santa Claus. But one thing I will always admire him for is his commitment to the kids of Tukwila. He worked for the Tukwila Elementary for 2 decades and transformed countless lives with his wisdom, mentorship. He also gave time to help kids through the Boy Scouts, Club Scouts, youth baseball, and soccer. He implemented a youth running club that was still going strong just when the pandemic hit. Joe grew up in Hope, Arkansas, and he has shared many fascinating and inspiring stories of Southern life in the 1950s and 60s. After serving in the Army, he ended up in Washington State in 1964, where he found work as a welder in the shipyards. He moved to Tukwila in 1968 with his wife Jackie. They raised a family, including sons Joe Jr. and Kerwin, daughters Jacqueline and Renee. In the 70s, he felt a calling to public service and started attending council meetings. and earned an appointment to the Board of Adjustments. Joe was inspired to run for office to improve the quality of life in Tukwila neighborhoods and to improve the accountability in city government. He was elected and sworn into the City Council on January 5th, 1982. He made a name for himself as a champion of transparent government, safe neighborhoods, and an advocate for youth, and was re-elected with broad public support to 9 additional terms, serving a staggering 36 years before his retirement in 2017. He was beloved as a council member. People trusted him, and they knew that they could turn to him for help with any issue, and he delivered. Today we honor Joe Duffy with the planting of a giant coast redwood. This is a very special tree with a potential great height and a very long life. Some in this species reaching over 2,000 years. And this is what this is about. Juneteenth was a celebration to acknowledge challenges, but also the opportunities that lay ahead. So I am proud to be here with Joe and Jackie as a demonstration of a fixture, and a fixture being African American in America, that they've changed this community, that they've helped people like me and my kids, that they've helped everybody in this community know what it means to be dedicated and to have service and vision that lasts a lifetime. Congratulations.
Well, thank you,
Joe Duffy.
Mr. Councilman. Thank you, appreciate that. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Trish Kinlow. I'm the Court Administrator for Tukwila Municipal Court, and I have the privilege of talking about soul food. As it is with most cultures, including the African American culture, food is like the glue for most cultures, and certainly is the glue for the African American culture. Soul food. Food that transcends generations, food that gets cooked without measuring cups and spoons and things. It's just articulated from generation to generation. And so since we couldn't do this Juneteenth celebration in person, we are video recording some of the things that would have happened had we had the opportunity to do this in person. And so one of the dishes that I'm going to prepare for you is something that is a staple in most African American homes, which is called smothered cabbage. Now, I'm not old school, right? I'm a working mother. So I don't do all of that fancy chopping and stuff. I've gotten smart about it. And I buy stuff already chopped up. But it doesn't change the flavor, and that's all that matters, right? Right. So let's get started. First, I use bacon. I know it's not the healthy choice, but if you want your food to taste good, sometimes you gotta do the unhealthy thing, okay? So we've got bacon. And I'm gonna go ahead and put it in this pan and get it fried up for us. And one of the things about soul food cooking, and it's probably true in most cultures, a lot of our lessons get taught when we're cooking. In the kitchen, you know, all the stories get passed on, historical stories, history, cultural experiences, lessons. Homework gets done while we're cooking. But what's really important is that there's so much love that happens when we are in the kitchen. My fondest memories are being in the kitchen with my mom and my grandmother and my grandfather and learning how to cook. And it's quite hilarious because each one of them had their own techniques. So my mom was a hands-on type of teacher, and she'd get right in there, and if she was here, she'd be standing here next to me and telling me what to do and looking at stuff and helping me chop and all of that. Now my grandfather, he would just talk to us. He would sit at the end of the table in the kitchen and he'd say, now go to the cabinet and get your this and get your that, and you'd have to do everything on your own. He wasn't getting up to help you, but he'd tell you everything that you need to do. And simply by smelling the food, he would be able to tell you if you used enough ingredients. So he taught us to cook by smell. Now my grandmother, who was the main cook for the family, she had absolutely no patience. And she would tell you, you know, if I'm standing here and I'm doing this, if I'm not stirring it fast enough, she'd say, get out of my way, gal, I'll just do it. I ain't got time to be waiting for you. So learning how to cook in my family was quite hilarious because it just depended on who was going to be the teacher of the day. So we've got our bacon cooking up here. There's people here watching me do it. Do you guys smell it? All right, that's all that matters. All right, and so while that's starting to cook up, I'm going to turn this up a little bit because then we're going to start adding our vegetables. Now when I do my smothered cabbage, I like to add other vegetables. Most people do just bacon and the cabbage and some onions, and that's good, but I also like to add things like the tricolored peppers and red onion, and so we'll just put a little bit of that in here. And some people like to chop their stuff up really small, but I know that everybody doesn't like everything in their cabbage, so I like to make it big enough so that if you don't like it, you can pull it out. So next I'm going to add, now years past my grandmother would stand in the kitchen and she and my mother would chop and all of that. Like I said, I'm a working mom, so I buy it already chopped. This is cabbage, all right? Now, if my mom was here, God rest her soul, she was a clean cook, and she just did not believe in you making a mess when you cooked. And while that's cooking, I'm going to add a little bit of my seasoning. Every African American kitchen has some type of a seasoning salt. I prefer Johnny's. My cousins, some of them, they don't cook as good as me, but they like Lowry's. But Johnny's, this is the right one. And so just a little bit just to give it some flavor, right? Because you've already got the bacon in it, and it has enough sodium in it. And then I like to add a little garlic powder. Just a tad of do ya. And then I like mine a little spicy, so I add a few little red pepper flakes, just a few. And so you just keep cooking it, and if I was at home and I had family there, you know, one thing about it, everybody gathers in the kitchen. It doesn't matter how big of a house you have, it doesn't matter how many rooms you have. If you're cooking, everybody's in the kitchen. Everybody's not helping, but everybody's in the kitchen. So normally at about this point, I would turn the heat down, and then, yeah, can I use that lid over there? And we'll just cover it up and let it smother and steam out some more. And so a lot of infusion when it comes to soul food, it's not just one thing, but we take a lot of things and gather it together. And I was sharing with Scott earlier that a lot of times some of the things that we use to cook our food or the types of foods that we eat is because during the times of slavery, we weren't given the choice cuts of meat. So we had to use what was left. And we just learned how to make it taste good, right? If you're a good cook, you'll take anything and be able to make it taste good. Even chitlins. Well, maybe not so much. And so Also, a lot of the African American culture also had some infusion of the Indian culture, American Indian cultures. And so the other dish that I'm going to make for you is called succotash. And succotash is like a corn dish that has corn and tomatoes and vegetables in it. And then, of course, you know, my family is part of my family is Choctaw Indian, and so we added things like so the succotash, right, with the corn and everything. But then we added things like the bacon and the hot links and the okra, because that just tastes good, right? So let's get started on that. All right. So we start with our bacon again. We'll let that heat up some. For this dish, we're going to do some bacon. Here's our corn, our hot links all sliced up, more vegetables, right? We have our diced tomatoes. We have our tomato sauce and the okra. Oh yeah, that's good stuff right there. Everybody doesn't like okra. I love okra. When it's cooked right, it's delicious. So we'll just get our bacon started here, and hopefully we can cook it up a little more. You know, some people figure or equate, you know, the smell of baked cookies smelling like home. Nah, for me, bacon smells like home. All right, now while that's cooking, I'm going to grab some of the hot links and add them to the pan here and let those saute up a little bit. Now this dish will be a little hot because it does have the hot links in it. I won't add the red pepper flakes to this, but I am going to add some of the vegetables, just a little bit of veggies. More of the peppers than anything. I'll saute that up. Now, to be honest, this is very difficult for me because I'm not used to cooking a little bit of food. Because in our family, we always cook lots of food. Not because I was from a big family, but my grandparents believed that you should always have plenty in case somebody stops by. And somebody was always stopping by, Granny and Papa's house, because they knew that there would be food. All right, let's just go ahead and add a little bit of our okra. Now, in real succotash, there's usually some type of bean or something. My family, my grandmother used to put lima beans in hers. Now, I don't like lima beans, you know, I don't. So when I started making my succotash, I omitted the lima beans. I don't like lima beans. Now, this little pan, we're going to do our best to get all of this up in here. Tomatoes. See if we can get this all in here. Probably not all of it, but most of it. This is hilarious trying to cook this type of meal in this little bitty campsite pan. But where there's a will, there's a way. Okay, and so we add just a little bit of salt. A little bit of garlic powder. And what's nice about these two dishes is, if you notice, most of the ingredients is the same. It's the same thing. The only difference is with this one, you've got the tomatoes and the corn and the okra and the hot links. And with the cabbage, you don't. That's the easiest way to put it. Okay, we just let that just kind of cook down a little bit. And you can serve this several ways. You can serve it over rice, or you can serve it over spaghetti noodles. It's just up to you, what works for you. Let's check our cabbage. How about that? See how cabbage cooks down? It cooks way down, like you can barely see the cabbage. Add some more. Before filming, we learned that this stove, you can't use any other kind of pan on it. It has to be an induction pan. You ever heard of that? Never heard of that. Not used to that, but we learned something today, didn't we? It's all good. We're doing what we do best in Tukwila. We make it work. Turn it down a little. Cover it again. Let's stir this succotash. Suffering succotash. All right. Oh, that smells so good. So we'll get our cabbage here. We can have Rachel order some. And there you have it. Smothered cabbage and what I call my soul food succotash with no lima beans, because I don't like beans that are lima. So soul food is very much a part of the African American culture. Like I said, cooking the meal had a lot to do with our heritage. We got our history lessons through food. We got our directions and our information all in the kitchen, cooking with soul food. No, we have big pots and pans, but we don't have a whole lot. You know, you come to an African American house, you're not going to find a whole lot of measuring cups and teaspoons and stuff, because we don't use it. We don't cook by recipe. You look at a lot of our recipes, it's just the ingredients. Nobody tells you how much. Nobody tells you how much salt. They just say, oh, this is what you put in there, and write it down and give it to you, and you got to figure it out. But this was my pleasure to bring this to you on behalf of the city of Tukwila for our Juneteenth celebration. We couldn't do it in person, but we're bringing it to you virtual, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Bon appetit!
Hello, I'm Nichelle Page, a community member in the city of Tukwila. Tukwila has a strong legacy and history of African Americans. This year, the city of Tukwila would like to share 3 community leaders who continue to make difference and impact in the Tukwila community. There are Marva Harris, Alexis Mburo, and Jaden Crawford. Marva Harris, Miss Harris, has always been a strong supporter of Tukwila's youth. She wears several hats like security officer, resident mama, and auntie at Showalter Middle School for the past 19 years. Ms. Harris has gone beyond and above the call of duty for Tukwila School District, serving students, teachers, and families because she enjoys what she does and considers it her obligation to teach her way with her style like no other. Ms. Harris has thoroughly enjoyed assisting our students at sporting events, community events, and most notably in the classroom. She's known for being the loudest cheerleader, especially at basketball and football games. Since she is so well liked by current and former students, as well as the community, she is highly respected and loved. I've listened to staff in other school buildings say, we need a Miss Harris in our school, because she leads with love and requires excellence at each child's level. Her passion for students begins with a hard outer shell that quickly dissipates. She is a strong advocate for our youth's academic success. When she sees a need, she fills it, and if she can't, She finds who can provide the resources and/or supports needed to ensure that youth feel healthy, can learn in school, and have fun while doing so. I would like to honor Ms. Harris with the City of Tukwila's Juneteenth Commemoration 2021 Community Leader.
Thank you so much.
I love you.
I love you.
And now we have next Alexis Mburu. Alexis, she, her, is in the 10th grade, a member of the NAACP Youth Council, the Washington Ethnic Studies Now, and the Tukwila Children's Foundation. Alexis is passionate about community engagement and co-facilitates in the Tukwila School District's Race and Equity Committee. Alexis started a group called the Bridge Committee, where the goal is to bridge the communication and connection gaps between the schools, the 6 buildings, including participating in action-oriented group of people dedicated to making the Tukwila community better one day at a time. Alexis is a strong advocate for Black Lives Matter movement at Foster High School. Alexis is currently implementing those demands and ideas in Tukwila community at every level. Alexis most recently was featured in South Seattle Emerald addressing the need why Black lives should be in every school. Alexis is committed to this work throughout the Tukwila community and is determined to have community responsiveness, which is a very vast task. However, Alexis is motivated to tackle these multiple issues in the Tukwila community. And I am so very honored to present you with this award, not just because I've known you since the 6th grade, but the challenges that you've overcome and stepped through with confidence and making the changes that our next future will need to see. So I honor you today with this award for the Juneteenth Commemoration for 2021 as a leader.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you. Thank you.
And next up we have Jaden Crawford. Jaden is an 11th grader at Foster High School here in Tukwila. Jaden is a National Honor Society member, Black Student Union president, and community advocate. While this pandemic has changed for some of us, even halted our abilities to serve our community, Jaden has not let it stop him. He has demonstrated his commitment and passion to his community by participating in toy drives, clothing drives, food drives, provided PPE to people experiencing homelessness, brought perspectives from across the Tukwila community to local and state legislators. Jaden has even managed to testify on and advocate for bills in Olympia over just the course of this school year. And I am so honored to be able to present this award to Jaden. I have known Jaden since he was a little bit. He was a 6th grader and an advocate already at that time. You advocated for yourself through your own knowledge, and you didn't give up. That same spirit abides with you right now as an advocate and leader for not just yourself, but so many members of our community. And so today, it is my honor to present you with the Juneteenth Commemoration 2021 as our community leader. Thank you. I love you.
You too.
Oh, I'm at a crossroads. I am. We are at a crossroads. But which way? We're somewhere between here and there, now and then. Enter the path of psycho-direction. If seen can mean nightmare shared by many. In this land of plenty, seed planted, greed planted, capital, rise or fall, envisioning visions within visions with no pretension. Isms learned on the road from Babylon. You know the song. I sick and tired of these ism games. I ain't go to heaven in Jesus' name, Lord. There ain't no time to be bored. We're in the fourth down, seconds left, one step behind. Get up, stand up or lose your mind. Get up, stand up or lose your mind. Mountains of wealth distributed have been rerouted. Rivers run deep, hills are high, both like we. What are we gonna be? I was born somewhere. Within lies sin, which I cannot fight, so I write, and despite the force of the downslide, I fly. Step by step I crept. Quiet is kept, I'm taking baby steps. My mind filled with grime, dirt, dust, disgust. This I must relay. I have this fight every day, sometimes success, usually less than fresh caress of the sword. Three sides to the square, not here nor there. Flared nose, and I suppose you smell my weakness. But when I speak of it, it's easier to pass by. And although I try to fly, they say, you cannot leave, you cannot love. I can't ignore what I'm fighting for. Please, Lord, keep hope in my heart. Somewhere, somehow, I'll take my place, find a way to take flight, do right. Get what's mine or let go. Seeking peace through thought, gotta buy me some time. I know, please, Lord, keep hope in my heart. Somewhere, somehow, I'll take my place, find a way to take flight, do right. Get what's mine or let go. What's mine is my mind, and I be searching sometimes for a little bit of easiness. Somehow it turns complex, and yet I dream of simple things like walking down the street. But life ain't easy. Somehow it seems obscene to dream of being rich. I got this itch to be a snitch and tell the truth about what we go through. Prove I'm not insane. I know we all feel this pain, but we wear masks to hide events, claiming we got sense. All I need for the strength I need to pass this pain. Everlasting. Up, down, right, left. Better kept unexplained, like joy to pain and sunshine to rain. We need each other. We're all kin, enemies and friends. The up, down, right, left, better kept unexplained, like joy to pain and sunshine to rain. We need each other. We're all kin, enemies and friends. You know, there's a story about a man who goes on a journey and he gets halfway there and realizes that he's forgotten something. But he continues upon his way, and once he arrives to his destination, he learns that the only thing he needed to succeed and be free and be happy was the thing that he left behind. Go back and fetch it. Sankofa. Look back to go forward. Go back and fetch it. Sankofa. Let's go back.
Thank you all for joining us today for the City of Tukwila's first Juneteenth commemoration. We are hopeful that we will see you next year in person, and we look forward to seeing you soon in the community.